Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends, and thanks so much for dropping by the Horror Zone. I hope everyone's doing well. This is going to be my first in several videos for Halloween this season. If people are familiar with my channel and subscribe to me over the years, they know that every year I do some type of Halloween series on this channel. In 2017, I did 10 videos that I released over the course of October where I talked about the Halloween franchise and I ranked all of those films. So I did 10 videos last year talking about my top 100 horror films of all time. Now that was kind of a rough one. I don't think that one came out as good as I wanted it to, but it was a lot of fun, and I wanted to do something a little bit different this year. I have a lot of friends that are parents. I, unfortunately, was never lucky enough to have kids. My wife and I, we just didn't have children. But I have a lot of friends that have young kids, and they follow me on Instagram, they follow me on Facebook, and they see that I have all this crazy stuff here in the Horror Zone, or I post videos, or I talk about monster collectibles and things like that. And I've had a couple of them ask me, what are suggestions for their kids? Things that, wouldn't be so extreme, but would maybe get their kids familiar, or maybe just sort of introduce them to monsters. I grew up loving monsters from a very early age. I loved the season of Halloween. It's been my favorite holiday for as long as I can remember. And, the things that I remember growing up loving were like Scooby-Doo cartoons, where of course, the monsters were people in costumes, but still I looked at them as monsters at the beginning. Or The Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. That was something else that kind of bridged me into liking more extreme things as I got older. So I thought this series would be called Family Friendly Horror, something that people can watch these videos and maybe use my suggestions to introduce their kids to some of these movies that I'm going to talk about. Now for today's video, I wanted to talk about a movie that a lot of people really don't like, but I've always enjoyed. It's based on my favorite ride at Disneyland. The first time I went to Disneyland, I was 4 years old. My dad took me. I don't remember it very well, of course, because I was young, but I know he was frustrated with me at the time because he was a young dad, and he took me there thinking I would want to go on everything. But again, 4-year-old kid, I got sleepy. I kept falling asleep. I kept wanting to go into the stores and look at the toys and things like that. And I remember my dad telling me he's not bringing me back to Disneyland until I was older. So he brought me back when I was 9. And of course, at 9 years old, I enjoyed it a lot more than I did at 4. But at 4 years old, I still remember the Haunted Mansion. Now, the Haunted Mansion has been my favorite ride since the first time I went on it. It's still my first go-to when we go to Disneyland. It's that and Pirates of the Caribbean. Those are my two favorites, but the Haunted Mansion always stands out amongst the pack. And I was very excited in the early 2000s that they were going to be making a Haunted Mansion movie starring one of my favorite people of all time, Eddie Murphy, who I've been a fan of since I was a little boy. And this was coming on the heels of Pirates of the Caribbean doing, huge box office numbers over the summer. So of course I am talking about the Haunted Mansion. A lot of people don't talk about this movie. In fact, I don't know a lot of people that even mention this movie anymore. But it's a film that I think not only captures the spirit of the ride pretty well, but also is a good bridge for younger kids to watch and be introduced to these characters from, the ride that was created in 1969 at Disneyland. So the basic plot of the film deals with a realtor and his wife who are summoned to the Gracie Mansion, which they soon discover upon arriving that it is haunted. They come face to face with the 999 grim grinning ghosts. Now it's up to them and psychic Madame Leota to break the mansion of its age-old curse before the clock strikes 13. The movie stars Eddie Murphy as Jim Evers. It stars Marisha Thompson as Sarah Evers, Jennifer Tilly as Madame Leota, and Terrence Stamp as Ramsley. The movie was directed by Rob Minkoff and written by David Brenbaum. Just to give a little history on it, much of the movie's plot is inspired by the Phantom Manor, which is a version of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland Paris Resort. And the Gracie family that haunts the mansion is named after Yale Gracie, one of the original Imagineers of Disneyland that created the ride. Now, the Haunted Mansion movie, I think, is a good balance of horror and, comedy. A lot of people really looked down on this movie when it came out. I saw it opening weekend at the movie theaters just because I always supported Eddie Murphy in all of his movies. No matter how bad they were, I always went and saw his movies opening weekend. I had a good time with the Haunted Mansion. Yes, it does have some silly moments, some very corny dialogue, a lot of playing to the camera, especially Eddie Murphy's character of Jim Evers, who's sort of like this workaholic, kind of shyster real estate guy that neglects his family and his wife, and you know, they're supposed to be going on a family trip and they get called to come to this Gracie Manor to sell it, and then a storm sort of traps them at the mansion because it floods out the roads and they can't leave. And then it all comes to be that the mansion is haunted, and it's up to the family to help lift this curse off of it. And while the movie isn't perfect, like I said, it does have some corny moments. Yep. But I think at the heart of it, it's a really good story about family. It's a really good story about remembering what's important to you. And also with this backdrop of the Haunted Mansion, it really, you know, you get to see a lot of moments that people might be familiar with from the various incarnations of the ride at the various Disney parks. I think they did a terrific job of, you know, conveying that, you know, feeling that you get, especially, I've only been to the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland. I haven't been to the ones in Florida or around the world, but, you know, I just have a certain feeling, and I felt like right away, especially with the opening moments of this film, it captures that feeling I get when I walk on that ride every time. So there's some really good callbacks to the ride. I think it just came out at a time where people were wanting something a little darker, something a little with more of an edge to it, and this doesn't have an edge to it. It's a very much a Disney movie from the early 2000s, where, you know, yeah, the dialogue is kind of rough, and, you know, it doesn't play to Eddie Murphy's strengths as a comedian. He's pretty much a straight man with a couple of goofy one-liners every once in a while. I thought Jennifer Tilly did a great job as Madame Leota, playing the iconic, you know, psychic that we see on the ride as we're going through the various rooms in the manor. She does a great job of bringing that character to life, and Terrence Stamp is so menacing as Ramsley. Creepy, and I think the interactions between him and Eddie Murphy are some of my favorites in the movie. Like I said, production value is great, really brings a sense of the things I love about the ride onto the screen. And I think at the end of the day, you could do so much worse. I think this movie gets a lot of hate unfairly, and I think people should actually check it out. I think kids would really enjoy it. It's fast-paced, it doesn't drag. There's a lot of really cool little moments and some great special effects with the ghosts. There's callbacks to the ride with like the hitchhiking ghosts. So I think people should just give this movie a chance. It's a lot of fun. If I was going to rate the Haunted Mansion on my scale, I would give it 3.5 skulls. Not a perfect movie, not a movie that I think is Eddie Murphy's best, but one that just has a lot of charm, and we're going on 16 years since it was released in theaters, and I still enjoy watching it, and it still gives me that really warm feeling I get when I go onto the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland. So yeah, I think parents can do a lot worse than this film. Check it out, watch it with your kids. I think you would have a blast with it. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's a perfect introductory film for kids that are curious about monsters and things like that. So yeah, The Haunted Mansion, I definitely recommend checking it out. And I'm going to have a couple more segments in this. I'm not doing a ton of videos this year for Halloween because I have something really special that I'm working on, but I will be doing some more family-friendly horror films. I hope everyone enjoyed this segment. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you a fan of The Haunted Mansion, the ride, the movie? Just let me know what you guys think about it. Thanks so much again for the support, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Stay scared. I have a Patreon page if everybody wants to help support me. The link is down below. And if you do help support me, Dracula here will get more treats, and Dracula really loves his treats. So any support that you can give me would be very, very much appreciated. Right, Drac?